Welcome to today's market report. European stock markets are seen opening marginally lower on Thursday as investors hold their breath with Brexit and US stimulus talks continuing and ahead of the ECB policy meeting. DAX futures traded 0.2% lower, CAC 40 dropped 0.1%, FTSE 100 fell 0.1%. Talks between UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen late Wednesday ended without a breakthrough, confirming very large gaps remain over issues from fisheries to dispute resolution. The two sides gave themselves until the end of the weekend to seal a new trade pact with around $1 trillion in annual trade at risk of facing tariffs and quotas if a deal cannot be reached before transition agreements end on December the 31st. On Capitol Hill, US lawmakers were able to approve a stopgap government funding bill on Wednesday, but negotiations over a broader COVID-19 relief package continued with the two sides maintaining differences over aid to state and local governments. The European Central Bank holds its latest policy setting meeting later on Thursday, and the central bank is widely expected to increase and extend its pandemic bond buying program. The reasons for new ECB action are clear, with the second lockdowns. The September projections have become outdated and too optimistic, according to ING. Back then, the ECB had penciled in 3.1% quarter-on-quarter growth in the fourth quarter. This number will have to be revised downwards significantly. Data from the non-Eurozone UK earlier illustrated this slowdown, with monthly GDP growth of 0.4% for October, a drop from the 1.1% growth seen in the previous month. In corporate news, TUIGn, the world's biggest holiday company, posted a loss of €3 billion for the financial year, as the pandemic stopped travel and forced it to seek 3 bailouts from the German government. In the UK, online supermarket expert Ocado raised its full-year guidance again after a strong quarter through the end of November. It now expects a EBITDA of £70 million rather than £60 million. Oil prices rose on Thursday despite a larger-than-expected build in US crude stocks on increased confidence. A fairly prompt rollout of COVID-19 vaccines will spur a rebound in demand next year. Crude futures traded 0.3% higher at $45.67 per barrel. Brent rose 0.3% to $48.98 per barrel. Both benchmarks have fallen this week after previously posting 5 consecutive weeks of gains, but remain near 9-month highs. Gold futures rose 0.1% to $1,839.60 per ounce. On the FX front, the pound has underperformed after Wednesday's evening dinner talks between Johnson and von der Leyen that failed to make a decisive breakthrough in trade talks. The likelihood of a no-deal Brexit outcome is increasing, which boosts the risk of a sharper pound sell-off in the coming days. Both sides have agreed, though, that talks should continue in the next few days, despite major differences remaining between the UK and the EU, and that a firm decision will need to be taken on the future of negotiations by 13th of December. It should now be a lot clearer by the end of the weekend whether the UK will leave the EU with trade deal with the EU or on WTO terms. Ursula von der Leyen is due to debrief EU leaders about the discussions with Johnson at today's two-day summit. Market participants will be watching closely to see if there is any political contact between German Chancellor Merkel, French President Macron and Boris Johnson in the coming days in an attempt to break the deadlock. At the current juncture, the balance of risks appears to be shifting to the downside for the pound as the endgame approaches for Brexit talks. Hopes for a last-minute trade deal are fading. The GBP-USD pair was seen flirting with daily lows just above the 133 mark. Momentum is to the downside, while the relative strength index is stable. Some support awaits at 132.90, a stepping stone on the way up earlier this week. Some resistance is at 133.85, where the 50 SMA hits the price, followed by 134.10, the daily high. Despite the lack of breakthrough in Brexit trade talks on Wednesday, there was some good news for the EU when it was announced that Hungary and Poland have lifted their veto over the EU budget. Ahead of the ECB meeting, the euro has extended its advance against the US dollar back at the 120 level. The US dollar edged lower, with traders keeping a wary eye on the macro events, trading at 91.05. Dollar yen rose to 104.50. This is today's market news. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.